Welcome to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Bob Dancer is America's premier video poker writer and teacher. He's written 10 books, including Video Poker for the Intelligent Beginner and the best-selling $1 Million Video Poker. He helped develop the computer software Video Poker for Winners, and in 2004 he was inducted into the Video Poker Hall of Fame. Richard Munchkin has been a professional advantage player for over 30 years and is in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. His book, Gambling Wizards, Conversations with the World's Greatest Gamblers, is a testament to the many ways you can succeed at gambling. The goal of the show is that you'll be a more knowledgeable gambler tomorrow than you were yesterday. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good evening. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest tonight is no guest at all. There have been a number of emails from our listeners, and Richard and I will discuss many of them, along with some other pertinent gambling topics. This will be more than enough to cover the hour. We encourage emails to gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Although we received one recently that was above and beyond what we were asking for. One guy basically wanted everything Richard knew about several different games, including mini baccarat, three-card poker, blackjack bingo, and other games as well. I don't know if Richard recognized the name of this emailer, but I didn't. It takes a long time, sometimes, to work out an edge at a particular game. Working hard to do this and then immediately giving the information away via email to a stranger is not Richard's game plan. What was your reaction when you saw this email, Richard?
I had to laugh. It was just kind of so ridiculous that really all I could do was laugh because, I will give him this. He was at least thinking outside the box. He had questions about how to beat a lot of other games other than blackjack. But it was the equivalent of saying, hey, I hear there are bags of money laying around on the floor. Can you tell me where they are so I can go pick them up? I didn't respond to the email. And my response for our listeners to things like that is you're just going to have to go do your own studying. What galls me even more is when I get questions from people where they ask me things that they could easily find the answer to in Google in less time than it took them to send me the email. So before you email, plug your question into Google and see if you can just find the answer there. And the other thing I have to say is you have to scout your own games. I'm not going to scout them for you. So, I often get emails from blackjack players where they'll ask me something like, can you tell me where there are games that have surrender and the dealer stands on soft 17 and they only cut one deck or less out of 6? And so the answer is no, I can't tell you where those games are. And
you won't tell them where those games are.
The what?
You won't tell them where those games are.
Yeah.
But Stanford Wong's Current Blackjack News has that information, and that's available at reasonable cost if you're a serious player.
Yeah, but if you're a serious player, you'll also find that often that information is not accurate. Conditions change all the time, and conditions in places that are very populated, like Las Vegas or Atlantic City, you may find more accurate information in Current Blackjack News, but if you're looking for information about casinos in Minnesota and Wisconsin and, whatever, really all it's good for at that point is telling you where the casinos are located. The fact that they have casinos and that, they have blackjack games.
All right. Now, James Grosjean, he wrote a column in his Beyond Numbers blog concerning magic numbers. He said it's explained in his Exhibit CAA book, which I haven't been able to get him to sell me yet, so I don't have a clue as to what they are. But one of the latest is C00299-422R, and it might be time sensitive. Richard, what the hell's going on?
Well, this caused more emails, people asking me about this. I think he had it right in the blog. If you have to ask about it, they're probably not for you. In fact, they're probably not for anybody other than himself. I think one of the you have that a bit wrong when he says it was explained in CAA. It was not explained in CAA. But one of the things that is really great about that book is that there are these little Easter eggs. Easter eggs are things on the internet where you dig around and you hit the right series of keystrokes, kind of like those video poker players who found the way to milk those machines. You hit the right keystrokes and something pops up, a surprise, a picture or whatever. And so his book, Exhibit CAA, has a number of these sort of little things that if you really read the book thoroughly and dig through it, you'll find these little surprise items. And just buried in the glossary under the M's was, magic numbers, and there were just some numbers back there. And for those very, very, very few people who managed to figure out what they were, I'm sure it was like, I'm sure it gave them a great deal of pleasure to it's the equivalent of solving a puzzle. So, yeah, that's all. But it's certainly nothing that is going to matter to 99% of players out there. And actually, this particular magic number, I don't even know what it is. I have no idea what it is. But I'm not worried about it.
All right. Almost a month ago, Michael Shackelford joined Richard and me on the air for a discussion of what we saw at the G2E trade show. One of the things talked about by Richard was a device that could detect marked cards, and a story that there were cards from a strip casino that were pre-marked in the manufacturing process. A comment on VP Free asked whether or not gaming enforcement knows about this yet. Do you have any information on this, Richard?
That was weird. It sounded like, well, suddenly the World Series was on or something. I don't know if you heard that on your end. But anyway, whether gaming was notified, I don't know. I certainly didn't think it was my place to, notify gaming. Here's a guy trying to sell something to the casinos. I would think it'd be up to him to do that if he wanted to. I have to say I was a little bit suspicious of the whole thing when I saw it. The guy selling the device apparently is he is quite open about the fact that he used to be a casino cheat. And I was just a bit suspicious of the idea that he bought the cards that way and that they were pre-marked. And I actually asked him, now, did you really buy them this way, or did you kind of buy a bunch of decks and create this? And he was like, oh, no, I bought them this way. But, I had my doubts. As for gaming, who knows if they know? And even if they did know, what are they gonna do about it?
Okay. There was a recent case written about in the Washington Post where a card counter who played at Maryland Live, he was backroomed, and the police basically told him he had to give ID or they were going to drag him downtown and fingerprint him and send his fingerprints to the FBI. And as soon as he got the ID, they got it. The police handed it over to the casino. Now, a video of this backrooming has been posted on YouTube, and many players are getting particularly upset by this. Players have been backroomed before. Police have helped casinos before, Richard. So what's so different about this case?
Well, I think first of all, I want to say that anybody who wants to see the video, it is up at the Gambling with an Edge Facebook page. And I think the thing that makes this case really different is that we have video with audio. So players who have never experienced a backrooming for the first time are seeing just how blatantly the police act as an arm for the casino, and B, flat out lie. Now, maybe it's because the police are ignorant and just really don't understand the law, or they do know the law and they just flat out lie to aid the casino. I think it's really instructional for players who have never been backroomed to take a look at this video and to plan. What are you going to do if this happens to you? And I think the guy did a lot right. He did, I think, talk too much. Way too much. Yeah. But the police at one point tell him that there's an ordinance against counting cards. I mean, in Maryland. Flat out lie. Flat out
incorrect. That's not the same as a lie. As a lie. It's possible this police officer believed what he said was true.
Didn't know that it wasn't illegal?
Yeah, there's a lot of Las Vegas police officers who think card counting is illegal.
That's scary in this day and age.
It is.
Because I have to say, the media has gotten better in that regard. Almost every article I see about card counting now in the last couple of years will say in the article, now, card counting is not illegal. That sentence seems to work its way into the articles these days, including this Washington Post article, and the article was also in the Baltimore Sun. Anyway, I think it's I think it's definitely worth the time for players to go take a look at it, and as I say, think about how are you going to handle it if this happens to you. And basically, I think what the guy should have done is just say, I've broken no laws, I want to leave. I've broken no laws, I want to leave, or I want a lawyer. That's the other thing. I want a lawyer, But
okay.
So, yeah, check it out.
Okay. Now, we talked about last week with Bob Nersessian. If you haven't heard that show, you really want to check it out. But in the discussion, it was mentioned that London casinos typically have audio at the tables and are recording everything. Did I hear this right?
Yeah. This has been going on for quite a few years in London. They have microphones at all the tables, and they record the audio on the tables.
Not just in the high limit room, in every casino in the every
as
table
far
in the
as
casino?
I know, it's at every table in every casino.
Okay.
And one of the things that I find just mind-boggling is card counters who talk about card counting at the table. Now, you would think that no one would ever do that, but you would be surprised. There are a lot of guys who talk about counting cards at the table while they're counting. Obviously, these are not, very serious players, although sometimes they're betting reasonable amounts of money. I would not recommend doing that if you're playing in London. Or for you people who count out loud. You probably want to avoid that as well.
Now, different subject. The video poker case, which I thought was cheating, and Richard, you thought it wasn't. Part of what they were accused of is sometimes finding a hand such as 4 aces on a machine at low stakes, say quarters, where the jackpot might be worth $200. And then they went and they hit the buttons in the right sequence and turned it into hitting aces at, say, $2, where now it's worth $1,600. And they haven't played a hand at all. They just collected what somebody else left on the machine. Somebody suggested this is past posting. Now, past posting is considered to be cheating. So how is this different, Richard?
Well, to me, it is different. Past posting, you're changing a bet after the decision has been made. So I would liken this more to, like the piggy bank machines, the old piggy bank machines where players would leave money in the piggy banks, or Ultimate X, where people walk away from machines, that have big multipliers on them, and people go scavenge those. But I go back to what Bob Nersessian said last week. This is a game, and the casino is offering this game and saying, here is our game, try to beat it. And, I would argue that if I have figured out a way to beat it by pushing the right combination of buttons, then I'm fine with that.
Even though you did not play a hand at all, you just...
Yeah, I mean, if you saw credits on the machine, if I saw credits on a machine, would I sit down and play them or cash them out? Yeah, I probably would. Now, I have to say, I'm not consistent. If I found some bug like this on an ATM machine where I could go up and push some series of buttons and have money spit out of an ATM machine at a bank, I wouldn't do. And I'm not saying that makes any sense. I'm just saying, for me personally, I guess I have a much more combative attitude toward the casinos than I do toward a bank. But yeah, to me, the casino is saying, here's our game, come try to beat it. And I say, okay, and I do,
Well, good.
It's not the same as me sticking a monkey wrench up the slot or something.
Okay. So I guess we're just going to continue to disagree on this, which is fine. Okay, let's talk politics. We don't normally mention politics on this show, except when it relates to gambling. In Nevada, there's something called Proposition 3, which on a personal basis scares the hell out of me. Richard, what do you know about this?
Yeah, so anybody who is registered to vote in Nevada should be aware of this. And if you haven't voted yet, go look up Proposition 3. The way that I understand this is, well, first of all, I should say it's called Nevada Margin Tax for Public Schools Initiative Question 3. And I became aware of it because Bob Nersessian, our guest last week, an attorney, posted about it over on BJ21, Stanford Wong's site. And as he explains it, that anyone who has gross receipts of over $1 million, basically, if you're a video poker player and you have gross W2Gs of over $1 million, that you would not be able to write off your losses against your wins, as I understand it, and that you would be taxed on that gross win. Is that the way you get it, Bob?
Well, I don't know. Just the thought scares me. This year I have about $5 million worth of W2Gs. And if I'm taxed on $5 million, that could bankrupt me,
right,
depending on the tax rate. Whereas I have a nice win this year, and I definitely will pay taxes on that. But if this passes and that's the correct reading, then 2014 will be my last year of gambling at higher than quarters or something.
This is another one of those cases where, they're not considering the unintended consequences. But I believe Massachusetts is like this and several other states, right? Not Massachusetts, Connecticut.
Don't know.
My understanding is Connecticut, and there are a couple of other states where you can't write off your gambling losses against your wins. So
there are some states like that, but not a Nevada is the major gambling state, and that would be huge. And so I really wasn't ready to seriously think about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I thought I had it figured out for a while, but maybe not.
Well, you're making big bucks on the radio, Bob. So.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh yeah. The Yeah.
Dozens of dollars you're making here.
Dozens of dollars. Yeah, several dozen dollars tonight. Yes, that's correct. So, Richard, you used to be an amateur magician. Now, some of the things, I mean, other than the individual tricks, there's some kind of general principles you learn when you study magic, like sleight of hand. So, palming chips and things like that will come easier to you than they will to those who have not studied magic. Probably something else is when you do a magic trick is called misdirection, where you successfully get the audience to be looking to your right when what's really happening is going on to the left. So I heard you do an interview on a blackjackapprenticeship.com, their website, and it had something to do with a situation at Bally's, maybe 20 years ago. I don't know. Do you remember that?
Probably more like 30.
Do you remember the story?
No, I do remember the story. Yeah.
What happened?
Well, first I should preface the story. The very first hole card play that I ever made with my partner, who I play with now, we made a play down at the California Club. This is, I don't know, maybe in the 80s. But we were playing a face-up shoe game. And at that time, there were hole cards. The dealers would peek under the tins. So one version of playing a hole card was called a first baser, where the person at first base, when the dealer peeked under the tins, you could, get the hole card at that time. So I was playing this game with my partner, and he was sitting at first base. And at one point, we had been playing for about 4 hours. We were going to play this last set and then leave. And it was a face-up shoe game, and I had 10 deuce against a 10. And he signals me that the dealer has a big stiff in the hole. Now, today, if that were to happen, I would, without hesitation, hit my 12. But it was the first time I had ever played with him. I didn't know how strongly he wanted me to play it. And so basically, I didn't want to make a mistake. So I stood on my 10 deuce against a 10. And the dealer flipped the whole card, and it was a 6. And I hear the shift boss, who's talking to another boss, say, "That's it. The guy on first base is getting the whole card." So anyway,
that's what you didn't hear. That's what you feared you were going to hear.
No, I did hear it. I heard the shift boss say that to the other boss in the pit. And I immediately signaled to my partner, major heat, get out of here, and we got out. Although they did call Griffin, and Andy Anderson showed up, and he did see me, but anyway, so now cut to sometime a year later or something like that, and I was playing a hole card at Bally's. Only this time, it was a face-down shoe game. They used to deal shoes face-down back then, some of them. And so I, again, had 12 against 10, but this time I tucked it with no problem because it was a face-down game. And just after I tucked my hand, the pit boss comes over to the table to chat up the players, and I think, oh, my God, he's going to see the dealer turn over my hand and see that I stood with 12 against a 10. So I had bought some T-shirts, and right after the dealer busts and reaches for my hand, I just grabbed the T-shirt and basically held it up in front of the boss's face and said, "Look at this T-shirt I got downstairs," basically blocking the boss's view of my hand. So I wouldn't say that it was the cleanest piece of misdirection of my career, but it did do the job. It did distract the boss from looking at the cards on the table.
Fast thinking.
Fast, yeah. Hopefully, I've gotten a little smoother over the years.
Now you do polo shirts. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about your current partner. I'm assuming you're talking about Daryl Purpose, who was a guest on this show more than a year ago. And he told a story about the first time the two of you went to Europe together. The interesting part of that adventure happened in England. Now, I heard Daryl's version, and I've heard your version. Now, similar, you're a better storyteller, and I love to hear the way it happened your way. So, what happened in London, or in England, rather?
So at that time, this was 1983, and at that time, all the casinos in England were private clubs, and you had to join, and then there was a 48-hour cooling off period before you could actually enter and play. So we got to London, we signed up for all the clubs, and then we got in the car and we drove north. We heard there were two casinos in Leicester, which I think is about 125 miles north of London.
What he means is 200 kilometers. Go ahead.
Right. So we got to Leicester. There were two casinos there. Now, we had a policy in Europe. You had to, as I say, join all these clubs. And some of the casinos required you to show a passport, and some did not. So our policy was, if they ask for a passport, obviously we show it to them. If they don't, we give them a fake name. And that way, if you get barred, you don't burn all the clubs, under your real name. So the first club we went to, they did not ask for a passport. We gave them our fake names. And the second club, they did ask for the passport, so we gave them our real names. So we waited our 48 hours, and we went to the first club where we gave the fake name, and the game was not what we were looking for. And we went to the second club where we had used our real names, and they had a really great shuffle. Now, I should mention that we were using a shuffle tracking computer that Keith Taft had invented called Thor. And at this time, computers were legal both in the United States and in England. Although that doesn't mean, just because you're not breaking the law doesn't mean that, you can't get in some trouble. So anyway, we played this game, and I have to say it did look a little bit weird, right? There are two Americans in the middle of winter in this industrial town, which is basically their claim to fame is they have a big sock factory there. So when they were asking us, what are we doing in Leicester, we didn't have a really good answer for that. Tourists just didn't seem like it fit. But anyway, so we played this game, and everybody in the place was betting £1 or £2, and the limit, I think, was 200, and we were betting, 3 hands of 200. And the shuffle was very easy for this computer to beat, and so we really kind of crushed them. And I think we won £20,000 betting 3 hands of 200. And we, after a few hours of this, they started to change the way they were shuffling the cards, and it was no longer good for us. So we get up and we go to the cashier, and they don't have the money to pay us. And so they offer us a check, and we thought that was not a very good idea. So then they said, well, just come back tomorrow, take the chips with you, and come back tomorrow, and we will have gone to the bank, and then we'll be able to cash them. So we thought, okay, that's fine. So we go back to our hotel, and the next day we have to decide, should Daryl suit up and put the computer on, or should we leave it back in the hotel room? And we decide that, it seemed pretty safe. They had changed the shuffle around, but they didn't seem upset or anything. And maybe the shuffle's going to be good again, right? So we decide he's going to wear the computer. And we go back to the casino, and he goes to the cashier's cage to get the money. Well, I go to the blackjack table and see if the shuffle is good again. So I sit down and start playing, and the dealer shuffles the cards, and I can see right away that the shuffle is not what we want. And so I play a few hands and get up and go to the cashier's cage, and Daryl's not there. And I said to the cashier, where's my friend? And she says, what friend? I said, the big American guy that was just here cashing all the chips. She said, oh, I think he went upstairs. And she points to a staircase, and I look, and it's dark. There are no lights on upstairs. And I guess there's a bar up there, but it was closed because it was morning. So I head up these dark stairs, and I hear voices up there somewhere. And I get up to the bar, which is closed, and I come around a corner, and Daryl's sitting on a couch talking to this guy, and there's another guy standing there. And I said, what's going on? And the guy on the couch says, are you a professional gambler too? And I said, what? And he says, are you a professional gambler too? I said, no. And he holds up a badge and says, Scotland Yard.
Oh, dear.
And just like in the movies. So I said, well, what's going on? And the guy says, well, there's no problem. We just want to make sure you are who you say you are. So I said, well, that's no problem. Here's my passport. Why is there a question? Well, what we came to find out later is that when we were playing and winning all the money, it's a small town, right? So the owner of the casino calls the other casino and says, did you have two Americans in there named, Munchkin and Daryl? And the guy said, well, I had two Americans in here, but those weren't the names that they used here. So fortunately, this all happened in the casino where we were using our real names. But anyway, so we showed them our passports and said, are you accusing us of doing anything wrong? Have we done something wrong? No. We just want to make sure you are who you say you are. And so now they check our passports, they check my driver's license, they check the car registration, our airline tickets, and now they want to go back and look at our hotel room. And so we get in the police car, and, we're talking to them the whole way. And by now, the police were kind of on our side. They kind of felt like they were rousting us for no reason, other than the fact that we had won some money. So we get back to the hotel room, and the only thing that I'm worried about is sitting on the bed is a briefcase, and in that briefcase is a notepad that has all of the cards for all of the casinos that we've signed up, and it's got a notepad with all the fake names we've used and at what casino, and it's got a bunch of extra switches, toe switches for the computer and batteries and a soldering iron. Not a good thing for them to be looking in.
You didn't want to have to explain that.
No, and this whole time I'm trying to, Daryl has this bulge on his leg where the computer is strapped, and I'm trying to always be in between him and the cops so they don't notice and think maybe he has a gun or something. And we get back to the hotel room, and they look in the closet, and they look in the drawers, and they open Daryl's guitar case. He even says, what do you got in here, a machine gun? And he opens the guitar case. And the last thing was the briefcase on the end of the bed. And the guy walks over to the briefcase, he says, well, I guess that's it then. And he opens the briefcase and just closes it back up without looking down into it. I mean, he opened it up, and the world was there for him to see, and he didn't even look down into it. And then they let us go. So needless to say, we couldn't walk into another casino in England. The next day we packed up and headed to Dover and took the ferry back over to Belgium.
Wow. That would be...
That was certainly one of the scarier days I've had in my gambling career.
So it's not clear what would have happened, and maybe nothing, but but the fear of the unknown there could be pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean, other people that we knew that were found with computers definitely did, go spend some time in jail. I mean, every one of them that I know that happened to, they always got out, got their money back. No charges were ever filed, but they did get arrested.
All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to go through that.
I think that's a great story. And better you than me. One of our sponsors, the South Point, opened up a state-of-the-art bowling tournament center today, and with many others, I got the grand tour. The regular bowling facility remains open 24/7. The new place is just for tournaments. Over the next 12 years, they've already contracted to 9 major tournament events and several lesser tournament events. And some of these events take 6 months to get ready for, because all the bowling ball manufacturers and stuff and come and put in these big displays, and it takes a long time to get ready for it. This isn't particularly of interest to the most of our audience, I suspect, but this will bring in hundreds of thousands of additional people into Las Vegas every year, and this is good for the city as a whole. This is actually more people than the rodeos bring in, which is the rodeos have been good to Las Vegas. All right, James Grosjean. Periodically, we talk about his Beyond Numbers column, and a column recently was called Blackjack Amnesia. The gist of it was that he has a little memory of the individual hands and scores. If he remembers one, it was because of something like extra heat. Now, I'm similar in video poker. I don't remember the cards Shirley held on the one $400,000 royal flush that we hit together. That was 13 years ago. If I write about it for some reason, now I got to come up with a column every week, so I'm going to write about that however often. But if I have to write about it, I'll go look at the $1 Million Video Poker autobiography, look at the picture on the cover, and then describe the hand. And then I'll forget about it again. But I can remember the promotions that caused us to be playing so many hours, to be playing a $100 game at that point. Those were key parts of my decisions, and those I remember. The actual hands, not so much. Now, Richard, a couple decades ago, you played quite a bit in Korea. Now, I would bet that you would remember, you don't remember the individual hands of whatever you were playing, but probably enrolling the big player and teaching him how to play and some of the problems you had with whatever big players you use. I would think you'd remember that even today.
Yeah, the stuff that I remember, I don't remember the hands and the winning, and the wins I don't remember as well as he said in his article, the losses, or, like, for example, the story that I just told about at Bally's and distracting the boss with a shirt. Those are the kind of things I remember, when something happened with a boss. Or, like the Scotland Yard incident. It wasn't the actual, playing of the game. And my best memories of sort of my gambling really don't involve the game. My favorite memories really are more about my teammates. What I did with my teammates in a particular place, or whether it was, comp meals on the top of Harvey's in Lake Tahoe, or, doing something with Daryl in Korea or England or somewhere. Those are the parts that create good memories for me, not the actual play of the game.
Okay. In my current blog out on the LasVegasAdvisor.com website, in addition to BobDancer.com, I talk about using a strategy card in the casino rather than having the strategy memorized. Richard, in table games, does it ever make sense to use a strategy card maybe even for cover.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with some of the strategies for example, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, can get quite complicated. And James Grosjean has those cards that you can get from Las Vegas Advisor that give you the proper basic strategy. Some of the games are very simple, but some of the games are more complicated. So, I could absolutely see using a strategy card like that at the table. And I'm sure, nobody knows how to play those games. The players play them so badly, and the advice that the dealers give to the players is often, really horrible too. So I'm sure that if you used one of those strategy cards, I'm sure they would, not only would they think you're an idiot, but they'd also think that the card is wrong, because you know how dealers always think they know how to play games.
Yeah, well, I suspect if it took you a long time to decipher what was on the card, they would come up and say, speed it up or put it away. But what about now, you, in your gambling career, you have an excellent memory, and that's one of your major assets as a advantage player. But some people don't have such good memories, and they use all kinds of mnemonic devices at the table. I don't think you have to have a genius level memory in order to do this.
No, but but it certainly helps. But you know what? Memory is a muscle, just like any other, and it can be exercised. And people are astounded how much they can remember if they're just taught a few simple tricks. For how to improve your memory. There's a great book called Moonwalking with Einstein. About a journalist who got involved in, the memory Olympics. It's really not that difficult, but like anything, it just takes some practice. It just takes some work, which a lot of people don't want to do. They just want to know which is the lucky machine.
Yeah, where do I pick up that bag of gold?
Right. Yeah.
And can you arrange a cart to make it easier for me to carry? Unless things change in a special election next week, Steve Wynn will be building a casino in Everett, Massachusetts, which is in Greater Boston. In Greater Boston, you'll find Harvard University and MIT, both of which are world-class institutions full of brilliant students and professors, along with 60 or so other colleges and universities in Greater Boston. Now, Ben Mesrick, who has written 2 fictionalized books about MIT blackjack team members, wrote an article recently speculating that the percentage of advantage players at this casino will be much higher than what you find at other locations. Richard, how vulnerable do you think this casino will be to APs?
Oh, probably not very. First of all, Steve Wynn's casinos are pretty, the staff are pretty well trained about spotting advantage play, and actually more than that, they seem to be very good about picking up faces. I don't know if they sit around in their spare time, leafing through the old Griffin flyers or what, but they seem to be pretty good about picking out faces. Casinos get all worried about that. I just think the fear is overblown. I'm sure there will be a lot of new card counters, college students from those schools, but they're very easy to spot and to, take some countermeasures. I don't think it'll be any different than anywhere else. I think they'll make billions of dollars. They have a great location, and they'll be making so much money, they shouldn't be worried about it.
All right. I actually forgot to run the commercials, so I better squeeze in what I can. South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. That's more than anybody else has. Through tomorrow, They're having a casino-wide progressive jackpot that must hit between $10,000 and $25,000. All active players with their cards inserted when the jackpot goes off receive $25 in free play. In addition, at 11 a.m. every day, another progressive starts at $1,000 and must be hit by $2,500. When it hits tomorrow, it's done for the year. The free video poker class next week is Double Bonus Deuces. This is a game that combines Deuces Wild with Double Bonus Poker. Compared to last week's class, which was Bonus Deuces, Double Bonus Deuces receive twice as much for 5 aces, a little more for 5 threes, 4s, and 5s, and more for straight flushes. It receives less for full houses and flushes, which really affects the strategy. All told, the game returns more than 99.8%, which means that when you include the slot club benefits, the game returns more than 100% 24/7. The class begins at noon in the Grandview Lounge. Everybody at least 21 years of age is welcome. In November, if you earn at least 2,000 video poker points or 800 real points between November 1st and 23rd, you receive a free Norbest turkey and serving platter the Sunday through Wednesday before Thanksgiving. At the Palms, begin earning entries tomorrow for their weekly drawings in November. These will be held on Fridays, where each week the winners share $10,000. You don't need to be present to win. You need to claim your prize by midnight. There are 5 times entries, Friday and Saturday, 8 p.m. to midnight. 2 times entries all day Sunday and Tuesday. Play for points, PFP, through tomorrow. Halloween, that'll be Kohl's gift cards beginning Monday, November 3rd. You can start earning TJ Maxx gift card up to $175 a day, and gift cards may be redeemed at a rate of 0.20%. At videopoker.com, it's the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for their gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of their games. It's a good place to practice quick quads, for example. You can get the strategy from me or from Shaq's website for free, but if you want correction, you need to go to videopoker.com. For most players, you have no idea of how badly you play until you have a computer program correcting you. The game of the week, where cash prizes are awarded, is 100 Play with Super Times Pay. Super Times Pay is a 6-coin per line game where approximately one hand in 15 you get a multiplier that ranges from 2x to 10x. On average, the Super Times Pay feature adds about 0.25% to whatever game you're playing, and there's no need to change your strategy at all. All right, our guest next week is Phil Hellmuth. He is a poker brat. He's a polarizing figure. He's one of the best players in the world, and some people consider him one of the most obnoxious players in the world. If you want to submit questions for Phil for us to consider, you're welcome to do so at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Remember, however, this is not a show where we plan to insult our guest. So if you're going to write a snide question, save the bandwidth because we're not going to use it. All right, so right now I'm looking at the sponsor to get a clue as to how much time we have. About 2 minutes. All right. Now, in traveling around the United States, I usually stay in casinos, comped, but there are times when I need a room and actually need to pay for it. I just heard about Airbnb. That's Airbnb. Richard, tell us about this.
Well, I've only used them once. Daryl does a lot of traveling, and he swears by them. And he's actually, made quite a bit of money, renting out rooms from it as well. But the thing I liked about it is I one time used one in Las Vegas where, because there are so many rooms available, you can get them very cheaply, and you don't have to deal with the resort fees or any of that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do with whether you are a people person or not. some people just want their privacy, and other people like meeting new people. And Jeffrey Compton, when he wrote his article about it, was saying that he cooks breakfast for the people that stay at his house. And I don't know. I've used him in London as well. We have like a beautiful multi-bedroom apartment in London rather than staying in some hotel room. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely worth checking out.
All right. We have about 30 seconds left, Richard. Where can people find a broadcast of our show?
Get the show delivered in your sleep every week so you don't miss an episode. iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or you can sign up at my site, richardmunchkin.com. All shows are archived at bobdancer.com. And check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/gamblingwithanedge.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. Everybody go out and hit lots of royal flushes. Good night.
Good night.
You've been listening to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Subscribe to the show in iTunes, and episodes will be delivered to you automatically every week. Archived versions of past shows may be found at bobdancer.com and richardmunchkin.com. We welcome emails at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin are both available on Facebook and welcome your questions. The sponsors for the show are the South Point Hotel, Casino and Spa, the M Resort, the Palms Casino Resort, and the website videopoker.com. Join us again next week for another Gambling with an Edge.